I'd like to introduce from Microsoft, Bryce Johnson, and from OneCourt, Bree Fraser. I'd like to thank you both for filling in on short notice. We had planned to release the Milestones project from DSB. Unfortunately, that wasn't quite ready to go to market, but both Bryce and Bree were really gracious in filling in for us, and I'm sure you'll be really pleased to hear what they're doing. So I'd like to start with Bree. If you would like to grab a microphone and you can come up and talk about what OneCourt is doing. It's very exciting, and please enjoy the presentation, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Murray and DSB and everyone who put on this weekend. It's OneCourt's first time being at this conference, so we're very grateful to be here. My name is Bree. I work at OneCourt as a program manager, which really just means in the startup world that I get to do a little bit of everything across our company, which is a lot of fun. So I get to come to events like this and share our technology. I get to chat one-on-one with folks to get feedback about what we're doing. And then my favorite part is actually inviting community members in the blind and low vision community to come watch sports through touch. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm just curious in the room to hear some cheers if you enjoy sports. Awesome, okay. And let's hear some cheers if you've tried the OneCourt device before. Okay, that's incredible. So it sounds like a mixed room of folks that might be familiar with what we do, but also some new folks, which is incredible. So at OneCourt, we are creating the world's first tactile sports broadcast. And so by tactile, we mean that rather than relying on vision or relying on an audio broadcast, we're translating live sports through touch. And so the reason why we came up with this idea is that we heard there's a number of pain points or challenges currently with experiencing live sports. So folks in the room might connect with some of these, but oftentimes there's missing details from the audio broadcast. So if you're at a live game, that audio might be delayed anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds. So you can imagine being at Lumen Field, maybe if you're a Seahawks football fan, and there's a touchdown, and the whole crowd cheers, but you're waiting for that audio broadcast to know who just did that touchdown, like who caught that ball and who ran it into the end zone. And so one challenge we're trying to solve is that delay between the radio and our experience. The second one is missing key details. Some of us might have our favorite broadcasters, but sometimes they like to talk about their lunch more than they like to talk about what's happening in the play. And some things are just really hard to describe through description, and it's easier to feel it for yourself. And so that's another pain point that we're trying to solve. And the third one is just that I've heard a lot that the live experience at a venue overall can be inaccessible. Everything from purchasing a ticket online with a screen reader, to getting to the venue, to navigating the venue. There's so many other barriers besides just enjoying the game that I had a fan say, by the time I get to my seat, I'm just exhausted. Yeah. And so oftentimes that can deter people from going to live sports. And so that's kind of the surrounding challenges aside from our device that we're trying to solve with other sports teams in the community. So the solution that OneCourt's come up with is a tactile broadcast. So we use vibrations to translate the live gameplay on the surface of our device. So the device is about the size of a tablet. It's 13 inches by 7 inches, and it can fit on your lap pretty comfortably. And it's about 2 inches thick. And so underneath the surface, there's over 200 haptic motors. And so these motors, they're really similar to what you might find in your cell phone. Your cell phone might have 1 or 2, and so your whole cell phone might vibrate. But with OneCourt, we have over 200, and they're really, really specific about where they vibrate. So when you place your hands on the surface of the device, You can feel, is the football or are the players on the left side of the field or the right side of the field? And you can actually feel it moving underneath your fingertips and track that ball in real time. So that's a little bit about the device itself. On the surface, we like to cover many sports. Myself, I'm a huge hockey fan, having grown up in Canada. So there's many sports that we cover, from baseball to football to soccer, and basketball. Most recently, the Trailblazers were our most recent team that we worked with close to year. I know a few folks in the room have been with us to Trailblazer games before. And so every surface is unique. There's tactile lines, grippy lines on the surface of the device so that you can feel, what does the football field feel like? Or what does the baseball diamond feel like? And then underneath that surface is where the vibrations are occurring. So that's the device, but you might think, okay, in theory this is pretty cool, but how does it actually work? How is it actually translated to live play? So we're actually really fortunate that professional sports leagues are already collecting really detailed information about the play. They know everything, from where the players are to where the ball is. You can imagine 20 different points on a body. That's how many points they're tracking of what's happening on the field. And so they've given us access to that data. And so we take that data, translate it to the device using either 5G or Wi-Fi, and in under half a second it's going from the field up into the cloud, the internet, coming back down to our device, and you feel it in real time. And so that's really that delay gap that we're solving, from 30 to 90 seconds to under a second. So I've talked a little bit about fan experiences a bit, but one thing I wanted to finish off on are the two different ways that we're inviting community members to try OneCourt. So the first way is by going to a live game. So I'd love to hear a cheer if you've been to a live game with us before. Okay, awesome, wonderful. So that's a really fun experience because you're in the arena, you're at the game live, real time, and trying the device. But the other way that we're really excited to launch in the next year is the at-home experience as well, so that fans can experience the game from their sofa, from their favorite sports bar. And I think something I'm really excited to hear from folks today is we have the new iteration of our device, and I'd love to hear feedback on it, because before we get to that point of launching the at-home product, we want to make sure it is as good as it can be. So that's why I'm really excited to be here and share what we're doing and hear feedback from everyone in the room. So maybe I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks so much, Bree. Having taken multiple groups to Trailblazer games and baseball, I'm really excited for the next iteration at home. OneCourt's a great company, so I really enjoy working with Bree and her team. I'd love to introduce now from Microsoft, Bryce Johnson.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting us to be here today. And it's been thrilling to watch OneCourt's kind of journey. I was lucky enough to kind of be there early on. So it's really cool. I'm going to give you, I'm also Canadian like Bree, so you know, we're invading apparently. So I want to give you a bit about my journey and what we do at Microsoft, just to kind of give you context, and I'll tell you a bit about some of the stuff that you might not know about. But I'm here, you know, all day and tomorrow, and I would love to get feedback from everyone. My accessibility journey, as a designer who really started to think about how we design for people with disabilities, I was the designer of the first digital library for the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. Wow. My customers were blind. And as a designer, we talk a lot about edge cases and marginalization. I will tell you that as a designer, you pick the center. So when I designed the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, I marginalized, as Nicole would say, the 2020s or the sighties, right? Because I designed this product, this system for the blind. And that's a really important insight, because it's about intent, right? It's about how we actually create products and how we sort of do things. I brought narrator to the Xbox consoles. Fast forward a few years, I was the designer of narrator for Xbox, and that journey basically started us in how we think about accessibility for video games. If you've heard of a product called the Xbox Adaptive Controller, I'm one of the designers of that. That was my hackathon project, and that started this really kind of intentional journey of us thinking about not only like accessible software experiences and AT&T software, but how we think about it from a hardware perspective. The Xbox Adaptive Controller led to this facility that we have at Microsoft called the Inclusive Tech Lab. Please come talk to me about it. If you are ever in the Redmond area, please come by. Murray's been by, that's where we met, right? Murray came by, brought a group of folks. That's what we're here for. We're here to have that facility, to bring people from the disability community in to help us make our products better, right? To intentionally include people with disabilities in the products that we create. So I want to talk about two sort of physical products, and then I'm going to talk about AI, because it can't be a Microsoft guy and not talk about AI. Because that's kind of our deal now. But some of the hardware things that we've done recently, which is really exciting, is to think about like tactile indicators on keyboards. I know it doesn't sound exciting to you; it's very exciting to me. But like this idea of how people navigate keyboards without sight is really important. And while we experimented with a lot of different ways of adding tactility to keyboards, and we can still do better, and we still are trying to do better, the one kind of thing that we came up with was this thing that we called the Surface Adaptive Kit. And I'd love to show it to you later, if you guys want to come by and see us in the booth. It's a set of tactile indicators where folks with limited vision or no vision can tactily mark their keyboard in a way that helps them define their keys. Yeah. And now, the reason why, bump dots aren't new. I'm not claiming to invent bump dots, okay? I'm not. But what I am saying is that what I found with bump dots is that folks would put bump dots on their keyboard, they'd shut the lid on their laptop, their laptop wouldn't go to sleep because you got a bump dot on it and the laptop's not going to sleep. And then they tell me, the battery life on this thing sucks. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not going to sleep, right? So how do we create things that are intentionally tactile, but at the same time don't take away from how the device was created? So we're always trying to think about, I don't want to say mainstreaming, that's not what I kind of mean, but I want to think about like how things can be basically elegant. Like why do people with disabilities like not deserve nice things?
Yes,
right? How do we think about it? So the next product that I'd love to show you later that I have up here is we have this product that we just launched called the Surface Bold Type Cover. And most of the time I show it to people and they can't tell what the deal is. And it's a large print, stronger font weight type cover, but we intentionally designed it to basically be invisible. And the reason for this is we work with a lot of people who have assistive technology that they don't use because they don't like the stigma of using assistive technology. I know there are a lot of students here. I meet with a lot of students in schools who can get an accessibility accommodation but don't want it because it's different than the rest of their kids, than the rest of their peers have. So how do we start to think about stigma when it comes to design? Right? That's another kind of journey that we're always on. And lastly, like with AI, one of the things I'd love to show you later, and if you want to come see us in our booth, is this. We have this really great sort of thing called Copilot Vision, which is built into Microsoft Edge, which has screen detection, and you can basically have it describe web pages for you, in addition to how your screen reader works. So it's this really interesting aspect in AI. We always talk about the social model of disability, and disability being a mismatch in interactions between a person and their environment, right? So when you, as someone who is blind, when you encounter barriers, it's because it wasn't designed for you, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about. So when we get into an era of AI, when things don't actually have to have a strict form anymore, it's a really exciting time. It's a really exciting time because content doesn't have to have form. And content can be anything that we want it to be. And so that's the kind of journey that we're on. I'll kind of leave it there, but hopefully we'll get to play some video games later. It'll be really fun. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Some really great insights from you both. Thank you so much. We're going to have an interactive panel discussion. I'd like to also invite Eli Sanchez down to the front from CATT Technologies to join our panel. I think it's really a great opportunity for you guys to be able to ask lots of good questions. And as Bryce and Bree were talking about, designing these things for you is important that we hear from you. And so it's a great opportunity for you to be able to talk about your own experiences. And I know both Bree and Bryce and Eli are very eager to be able to hear what you want and how you feel about things. So we'll take a microphone around, and Christian will be able to do that. Put your hand up, please, if you have a question. Eli, we'll get you to come around the front, so keep coming straight ahead. Keep coming.
Hey, thank you guys so much for presenting. That's incredible technology. Question on that, the tactile sports. So you said there's like points on the body, I guess like when they're creating a video game, they use those points. Is that like the technology it's using like live? So in a sense, you don't need a broadcaster, you don't need AI to compile what's going on in the field. Is it through like the video broadcasting, it's formatting all that and then converting it? Or is there like a paid employee at each event kind of putting that data into your guys' system? I'm not too techy, but
Yeah,
I don't know if that kind of makes sense.
I love the question, and I think how that question would be answered would have been different 5 years ago. So I think technology, the state of technology or computer vision really, the ability to track movement through cameras has evolved, and so that's what's made OneCourt possible. 5 years ago, we would have been dealing with the same delay. But a lot of leagues, like for example, use baseball. Baseball's using computer vision technology, which really just means there's cameras in the ballpark. And they're tracking everything that's happening through sight, which is actually a kind of a funny concept. They're using this computer vision through sight to then translate into haptics. And so because they're tracking everything that's happening on the field, the league initially used it for things like sports betting, or things like data analytics, like how fast is that pitch coming in? And so we're paying attention to different data. We're paying attention to where the player is, where the ball is that hit that they just made. And forgive me if my baseball jargon's off. I'm slowly learning the baseball jargon. But that hit, is it a fly ball or is it a ground ball? Like we can tell the difference through the data. And so we change what those haptics or those patterns feel like on the device. So those two things feel different. And so I think that's allowed us to create what we call our haptic language. So every sport's going to feel different. We're kind of creating a new language for every sport through touch. And so that's one example. In football, they use sensors in the pads, the shoulder pads, or the football itself. So it's a little bit different technology. In hockey, they tried putting a chip in the puck, but the player said the puck was too heavy. I don't know if they could tell the difference or not between the weight of the puck, but now they're using computer vision. So different technology, but I think the similar thread through all of that is every league has been so encouraging of our work and has given us access to that data. We're one of the few external people from these leagues that has access to this information. And so they're just ecstatic that through this data they can expand the game, and we can do that with them.
Thank you.
Next question.
I got a question for Bryce here. My son uses low vision, so he can see, but he doesn't get very good depth perception or 3D modeling. And his school uses a lot of tablets. And he has trouble focusing on what the tablet is showing him. I was wondering if you had any recommendations on what we should ask the school for to help him see it.
Yeah, no, that's actually really interesting, right? And I must admit, what I find so great about working with with students, the challenges of students who are blind are very different than students who are adults, and I don't want to kind of preach to the choir here, but the advocacy groups are largely based on blind adults, right? And so I think that there are things that I can talk to you about, but I'd rather, like, if it's all right with you, if we could kind of talk about it kind of afterwards.
Yeah, no
and we
problem.
kind of get into it, because I mean, the other thing about, you know, when it comes to disability and technology is I certainly don't have all the answers, but I'm definitely here to be on the journey. So, like, let's try to find those answers. It's interesting though that your school is all tablets, right?
Yes.
That's cool. I get it.
I'll let Eli also answer this question.
All right, so my name is Eli. I work with CATT Northwest, and that question kind of lands in what we do, because a lot of what we do is we work with the individuals who support the students in the school districts, blind and low vision students to be specific. So there's a lot of school districts that are tablet-based only, or also really popular one is Chromebooks. I think we got some feedback on that one. But one of the things that we try to talk about, and we're going to be talking about later on today during a session later on that I'm going to be running. But basically, it's getting with your team for the IEP to better prepare the student for the skills that they need later on in life. And what I mean by that is the majority of work to be had out here in life after school, and not just work, employment in general. Actually, it's actually it's almost everything. All the college campuses, the majority of them are Microsoft-based college campuses. The workforce is 95% Microsoft-driven in the United States. So all of this to say that even if the school is tablet-based or Chromebook-based or iPad-based, whichever one it is honestly best to consider the option of getting together with the IEP team and trying to see about getting the student to maybe move full-time or as much as they can to a Windows-based machine, just so that by the time they graduate out of the K-12 system, they are better prepared for what they're going to encounter in life after school.
Checks in the mail, Eli.
Eli is doing all of our promo work for me today, talking about our IEP session later on. By the way, everybody at this panel will have an exhibit booth today in the exhibit marketplace. I'll be hosting the exhibit marketplace this afternoon, and you'll be in groups and you'll do rotations, so everyone will get to see the exhibit marketplace and interact with all three panelists here. Next question, please.
Hi again. I have a couple of questions. One is kind of more common, but it's OneCourt, right? OneCourt.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Cool. So the OneCourt, for me, I feel like one of the things I'm most worried about is that the home one, the one that you would be able to use at home, will cost $10,000, because it feels like a lot of the assistive technology we're getting, it costs so much money that we can't afford, no one can get it. And I didn't know this was something I don't know, I was trying to make up my mind about bringing it up, but no, I'm serious though. But yeah, I'm just saying if there's some kind of I don't know, I just want to bring it up. But
I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, but it's a great question, and it's something from the very beginning that we've talked about as a company, and has been flagged from us, from community, and it honestly shaped our business model. So currently, we sell devices directly to leagues and directly to teams. So we sold the devices to the Portland Trailblazers. They were the first NBA team to have it. And we expanded to 5 NBA teams this past season. And by having the leagues pay for it, it's at no cost to a fan. So you purchase your ticket, and the idea is that there should be accommodations, just like Bryce was talking about, so that fans can enjoy the game just like anyone else, and that shouldn't be an additional cost to a fan going. So that's why we chose to initially sell directly to the teams, and also their willingness to pay. I don't think there's any sports executives in the room today, but their willingness to pay is higher, right? Like they have more funds to be able to pay, especially as a young company, for that development work that we're doing. So that by the time we launch that at-home device, it is at a lower price point and it is more affordable. So it's been part of our model from the beginning. We're hoping to be able to secure what that price is going to be by the end of this year. But our goal is to be around the price of a tablet or an iPad, which is significantly lower, I think, than a lot of other assistive tech. And I know there's reason why things like refreshable braille displays, etc., are expensive. Like it is very strong technology that makes that happen, but we're just using different technology that isn't as expensive. So it's a great question, and it's something we think about all the time.
Next question.
My name is Michelle. I have a question for OneCourt. So you're saying that you guys are making separate devices for at home. Why don't you guys instead just use like our devices and like work with Apple or whatever to add vibrations to it, if that makes sense?
Yeah. If Apple wants to partner with us to make tactile iPads, like let's do it. I think being a young company and a startup has allowed us to move really quickly and be really innovative. It's not to say that big companies can't be innovative. I think the Inclusive Lab at Microsoft is a great example of that. But we make edits to our device all the time. Like we had over 200 fans use our device this past NBA season, and there were 4 separate occasions where we changed what the experience was on the device in the middle of the season. And that just is a little bit more challenging when working in a larger company. So that's one thing we think about. I think once our product settles into our form that we're ready to send out, there's opportunities for collaboration, absolutely. But that's where we're at right now with the technology. And I think we're the only company in the US that's using haptics in this tactile way for sports currently.
Next question.
Hola. So, I was just thinking about the whole, more like the gaming side of things, like of what we had talked about, because I'm a gamer. I live and breathe video games after school, and the gym sometimes, but, so I was wondering if there's anything, like any tools to use, or like maybe settings or something that's in the works too. Because I find in some video games there are colorblind settings that make colors more vibrant and stuff, but I was wondering if there was something in the works to kind of define a picture more for visually impaired people, because I find that things that are like small on the screen can be very hard to find, and when my friends find it easily, but strange question, but yeah.
No, not a strange question. Very relevant question, and something that I'd love to kind of talk to you about. When you encounter accessibility settings in games today, they are made by the game developer, right? So the game developer has put those settings in intentionally in the game. But video games don't actually talk to the computers in the way that you think that they do. So that's why, like, when you load up a video game on like a computer and you try to use your screen reader with it, and your screen reader basically reads nothing, it's because there's actually nothing there for it to read. So what you're describing is a challenge that we have as an assistive technology, sort of community, in that the AT doesn't have access to the video game because all it's doing is painting pixels on a screen, right? So what you're saying, though, is absolutely where we should be going. So as a platform maker, me, my day job is in Windows, we should figure out ways, probably using AI, to do what you are saying, because it is possible. I think what becomes interesting is we've actually looked at this before in the past, not with video games, but with movies. And again, like we had challenges in that members of the community would tell us, you are changing the artistic intent of the movie. And I'm like, yeah, but the artist didn't intend for you to see it, right? So how do we as a community kind of work that out? So please, please, please come find me and talk to me about that afterwards. Because it is one of those things that I do agree, it's right there. Like we can make this happen. So thank you for that.
Probably got time for 2 more questions.
Awesome. Okay, I have a kind of 2-in-1 question. My name is Amber Lynn. And so one question is for the OneCourt representative. There's so many sports out here in the country, in the world. Do you guys have a maybe list or a working idea of priorities, college sports, professional sports, things like that? And then as someone who's fully sighted and works in like really small ways, because I love the idea of universal design. I don't even know how I found it several years ago, and then found myself working in this kind of community. But what are ways that like I, as a fully sighted person, working my way through daily life, help out in small little ways like a OneCourt has done on such a large scale for something as little as sports?
I'll start with the first question, and then I'd love to hear what Bryce and Eli have to say about the second part. So we do have a sports order, or a roster, if you will, for our sports. The reason why we put sports like basketball in the NBA, football in the NFL, and baseball in the MLB at the top of it is because they have the data. And so we did actually early on, OneCourt started as a student project at the University of Washington back in 2021. Yeah, I know there's some Huskies in the room. And we thought about doing our own computer vision. Like we started playing around in the lab, moving a tennis ball back and forth and tracking it on the device, but we realized that these leagues already had the data. And so by leveraging their data, we could move quicker and we could get into venue quicker and focus on just the device itself and our product. So in some ways it's a limiting factor. It doesn't allow us to go into NCAA college sports yet because that data doesn't exist. Another great example is the WNBA. We have the Storm, like the Seattle Storm, they're a great team, but they don't have the same data setup that the NBA teams do. And so that's why I talk about like making the game more accessible. We're actively advocating on the inside for teams like the WNBA and the women's sports to have the same data as the men do. So that's a limiting factor on what teams we can get on our roster right now. But manual data entry is another thing that we're exploring because LA 28 is coming up, the Olympics and Paralympics. They don't have the same data structure, but we really want to be there. And so we're looking at manual data entry, and if we can do that, then that opens up community sport. Like the number of goalball tournaments that I've gone to, and I'm like, if we could feel goalball on the device, or like if a orientation and mobility specialist could use the device to like, this is what a soccer field feels like, and this is how the game is played, like in a teaching way, in a teaching application. I think there's so many ways we could expand it if we can get to that manual data entry point. So that's a really long answer to your roster question, but hockey, NHL is on there. Soccer for FIFA, we're hosting Club World Cup here in Seattle and the World Cup next year, so we're in talks with FIFA right now. I think those are the top ones for now. Funny enough, NASCAR and F1 got a lot of requests for racing on the device too, so yeah, if you can dream it, I'm excited for us to put it on the device in the next few years.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I appreciate everybody on the panel this morning with your dedication to technology for everyday use for our participants. This is Matt from DSB. I'm going to geek out for a moment, so bear with me. I have two questions, one for Bree and one for Bryce. I'll start with OneCourt. Do you see this technology being able to be something that could be transferred into other walks of life other than live broadcasting? Is that something that your team has considered for the future beyond what you're currently working on? And then for Bryce at Microsoft, we have a lot of youth in here, a lot of youth out there who are video game lovers. I was one of them as well before I lost my sight. And I know that there's just been an ongoing challenge for game developers to take gaming to the next level for non-visual users. And I'm just wondering if we're at the point where AI can start being embedded into all games that hit the market rather than developing specific games for just people with disabilities, so that it's accessible out of the box. And there's a lot of examples of games, where a AI assistant or a companion player in the game is supporting the player, and I think there's potentially some applications there. So I just wanted to ask both those questions. Thank you.
Two great questions. I'll answer the first one a bit quicker because that second one was also great. So expanding beyond live broadcast. I think the reason why we chose that first was because we heard it was the biggest pain point from fans, that delay, and so we wanted to solve that live broadcast challenge. We're actually excited about gaming. Xbox and adaptive controllers is a great example of how haptics are in controllers right now, and haptics have been used, which Bryce can talk more about. So we're excited about that. I'm excited about the teaching, the coaching, integrating OneCourt as a tool to learn sports or other things through tactile means. So I think there's a lot of avenues we could explore. And I'd love to hear if you have some ideas too.
Yeah, to talk about your video game question, absolutely there's a lot, but I think what you described, there's a bunch of different sort of parts to that question. So there's certainly things that the platform, that the device, that the console can do that can make everyday experiences more accessible for people who are blind or low vision. But what you described around that companion experience is something that the game developer would have to do. So I just kind of want to separate those things as like one thing is something that the person who is designing that experience needs to incorporate versus another, which could be like, you all folks out there who are low vision might have turned on an invert on their screen. That's something at a platform level. Those types of things that can kind of happen. But invert maybe not be the best example. It's kind of a hammer in many ways that's just not very elegant. But yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that. So come by me.
And we'll just go back a question, and let Eli answer the second part of the question before.
Oh, can we get that question again? I forgot it.
I think it was around what can people with sight do to help people more with blindness and low vision on a larger level.
Yeah, okay. So I would say the single best thing is to ask questions about topics relating to blindness and low vision. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people, when it comes to just topics of like tech or techniques, anything like that, honestly, a lot of people that are in the field like myself that we do is sometimes what we do is because we prep lesson plans for it and all kinds of prep time for it, it's really simple for us, so we can kind of glaze over the basics to it. A lot of people think that some questions, I always get this thing in the crowd where it's like, well, it's a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, right? But most of the time, I'd say a solid 80% of the time, when somebody asked me a question, it was a question that the majority of the room had, but everybody was a little too nervous to ask it. So whatever question it is, when it pertains, when it pertains to any kind of information, I would just say, just ask it. Just ask the question, because there's a high chance that all those around you, there's a bunch of people around you that have the same question that reach out and ask. So if you're up for being the one that takes the team forward, we'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
We've got one last question.
Hi, my name is Sherry. I may be following up to Lila's question and comment. One, I want to know, you offered the community to come out to the Redmond campus, and I just wanted to say, you've got a lot of tech there, a lot of high tech, and it's high security. So how user-friendly? So if someone just shows up or wants to come and visit to learn more, how is that? Is that scheduling an appointment? Is it showing up on the fly? How user-friendly is it? Because, you know, Microsoft is very high security, and it's almost impossible to it's really hard to navigate getting onto the campus, knowing where to go, knowing where to park, knowing where to check in at. That's one question. And then two, in terms of the affordability and for the community of the blind, and families, like Lila was saying, technology is changing fast at a very rapid rate, and the costs are very, very high for families. And what I want to know is, what will you do with the information today? Out of curiosity, will you bring this information back to the corporate level and share that with them in terms of what questions and comments and concerns that you've heard from the community today, so that it can be put out there, and maybe there's some grants that are available for the community of low vision and blind that are available for easier accessibility for the rapid technology that is always changing. So that was kind of a two-part, but I sit in the category of lower income, and that may be a broad statement for a majority of us, but I know it's where I sit, and it's something that we always worry about as either caregivers or parents or however. So that's my question, and I know it might be a confusing question, but there you go. Thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you for making me clarify. Please don't just drop by, because yeah, you're absolutely right. Actually, we even have security robots now. We're really weird. But what you can do, if you'd like to come to the Inclusive Tech Lab, come see me. I'll give you information on how to do it. We book an appointment, and part of the reason why we book an appointment is we want to know what you're interested in kind of learning about, and we want to tailor the experience kind of to you. We're not trying to, I host everything from, corporate executives to transition schools to community organizations. It is really the gamut. So we do want you to contact us. We will arrange this for you. We will help you find your way to the campus and get you in the right spot. And it will be easy. So that part. As far as the other question, I'm a designer that works in Windows and devices. I'm part of the engineering team. You are all advocates. We are all advocates. So I go back to my company and I advocate for this community in our internal processes of how we define products. So in the same way that you go out into the world and say, I need this, I show up in a meeting and go, someone else needs this. I think one of the challenges, if I can just switch disabilities for a second, when we were doing the Xbox Adaptive Controller, from a mobility perspective, is that the rest of the team did not understand disability, so they couldn't actually gauge what the solution that we were proposing would actually work. And I think you might experience that out in the world today with what you no one is going to come up to you and say that your needs aren't important, but that doesn't mean that they know how to address them, right? So it's really important for us. That's why we have that facility, so that we can engage folks, so that we can bring our engineering teams in and go and basically introduce them to a community that they might not have interacted with before. As far as the grant stuff goes, I don't have a good answer for that. I'm an engineer, right? Like, you know, that's someone else's kind of department, I'm afraid. You know, we certainly, as Bree said, you know, we certainly think about the cost aspect. I tend to think a little bit more about the value aspect. I mean, you know, as much as, yes, things are very expensive, and I certainly wouldn't deny that, you know, I'm sure you've also all purchased an accommodation that was kind of crappily made, right? So, you know, I think about value a lot. So please come talk to me. I'd love to kind of dig into that more.
I'd like to thank our panelists so much for a really educational and inviting panel. Thank you so much. As I said, all of them will be available at the exhibit hall as you go through today. The exhibit hall opens at 11:45 this morning on level 2. We were at dinner last night in the Hemlock room. I'll just get you out to break. The finalising code for this session is tracks. So it was moose to start and tracks to finish. Can anyone guess the theme of these? Good job, ice cream. Our next sessions will break into 2 panels, and you'll have a choice about what you go to. In this room, it'll be a panel for transition to school to employment, higher education. So if you'd like to attend that one, you stay here or come back here after your break. And if you want to attend the All About IEPs, that is out the back and to the right in Discovery C. So just the next room to our right or to your left, actually, as you're looking at me. Don't want to confuse you. All right, thanks again to the panel, and have a nice break, and we'll see you back in the new sessions at 10:45.